So about 13 years ago, I moved my family from Angola to Fort Wayne, merged with my former partner, Larry Phillips, merged our brokerages and moved out of sales and got to start to know all the agents in Fort Wayne and started to come in every day. And the man, the big producer, top producer in our Fort Wayne market and for the company in Fort Wayne, his name was John Sullivan. We just lost John a couple months ago in August. But for many of you in here who knew John, he was quite a personality. Bigger than life, bigger than the building, and he had been just a maestro top producer in the market forever. And I'd had a lot of success. I was nervous, and John had the big corner office in the building. And you heard John. When John was in the building, everybody knew he was there. You heard every sales call, every negotiation. Every time he got pissed off, you heard it. But he was a social animal and knew no strangers and was one of the top agents for our company for over 30 years. And John was one of those guys where if he didn't like what Larry and I were doing or a decision we made, we were going to hear about it. So one day we had a big meeting, and I was pretty sure John didn't like what we talked about in the meeting. So I get hey, come up to my office, I want to talk to you. And I was like, oh no. He didn't want to talk to Larry, he wanted to talk to me. So I go up and I go to sit down with John in his big corner office. He says, shut that door. So I close the door and I sit down. And John proceeds to dress me down why he thought the content of the meeting wasn't good and we needed to go a different direction with the company and that we needed to stay focused on the agents and what their needs were, and we didn't need this other stuff. And he wanted to tell me because he thought I might help be a catalyst for some of these new things that we could get into. So I listened and thanked John, and he was a legend. So the one thing from that meeting that I took from the day, and some of you heard this before, but was I got up to turn around, tail between my legs, and I go to open the door, and on the back of the door that I had never seen was a huge piece of paper with a big black number 50 on the door, on a piece of paper. And I stopped, I said, John, what's this? And he said, oh. He said, that's my business plan. I get 50 listings a year, and I don't need to worry about a damn else thing, nothing. And I laughed, and he goes, you guys overcomplicate this stuff. And it really hit me, because I had been a listing agent, and if you look around, every great agent with longevity in the business, with good quality of life, with consistent income, they're great listing agents. Everybody knows if you want to stay in the game a long time, and for those of you who have been, you realize you've got to be a great listing agent if you want to drive your business with some consistency. So that day I got another little lesson from John. It was that you don't need to overcomplicate things, but if you get listings, everything else flows down from there. And so that was John's message. 50, that made his year go great. And I will tell you, the guy sold between 50 and 100 homes every year as long as I knew him, right up until he was about done. He's one of our top agents. So just wanted to mention that to everybody. Today we're here because the market's shifted, and I think that getting listings is something that we've lost a little bit of focus on. Before I dive into all that, I want to take a quick moment. There's a lot that goes into days like this. It's great to see such great attendance. We've got people out in remote offices doing virtual live stream parties and watching. So hey to everybody in Goshen and Warsaw. We appreciate you checking in and plugging in today. But I want to give a big shout out and thanks to Hallmark Home Mortgage. They're in the room today. Seth is in the back. The big supporters. Michelle's in the room. I see her here. I don't know about Tina and Mark, but a big shout out and thanks to them. They've been big supporters, and Deb Sturgis from Hallmark. These events take a lot, so I want to give a big shout out and thanks to them. They're going to help run maybe some microphones and some things for some questions today. And then I would be remiss without giving a huge shout out to my team. They're amazing. Melissa Schneider's up in the booth. Jacqueline Myers. Barb's in the back of the room. Shelly, Hannah, from the coordination to sign-ups to the venue to the food to the balloons to the whole PowerPoint presentation and content. They're all awesome. Another big shout out to Dave and Pam, who are right up in front, for helping us out with our easel work today. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So But thanks to everybody for making this possible. I just get to deliver, hopefully, a message that's meaningful to all of you, but I couldn't do it without a lot of great people. So, moving on. So, why are listings so important? One of the things I want to mention today is I really want to have some interaction. We got 3 mics in the back, so if anybody wants to share, if you have a question, please feel free to chime in. But why are listings so important to your success? Well, it seems obvious, but I'm going to share with you all just a few things that are really relevant. When you work with a buyer, let's say you get a relocation buyer, and I know somebody today has an out-of-town buyer coming in, and they're going to spend the whole afternoon with them. When you're with a buyer, what are you doing? Showing houses. You're on the road all day. Can you return calls when you're with a buyer? Can you prospect when you're with a buyer? When you're with the buyer, you're with the buyer, which is great. And working with buyers is great. But your time is your real true commodity when you realize what this business is all about. And without listings, you lose your leverage. The best lever in our business, the best lever, are listings. If you want a great quality of life, you can have 10 listings, be out with a buyer, and have 3 listings sell. If you equated the amount of money that you could make during that same amount of time spent when you're with that buyer versus when you're just with the buyer if you have no listings. So big picture, not just today, not one buyer, but when you think about having great quality listing inventory where you're consistently having inventory, the leverage on your time exponentially starts to compound. And for all of you who've been in the business a long time, I know like Dave's over here, I see him right now, he's been in it for a long time. He knows the deal. When you have great listing inventory, it trickles down and affects the rest of your business. You get quality buyer lead calls. They turn into other listings. We're going to talk about some of that today. There's another metric that people don't realize. Most of the time when people get into the business, they tend to be buyer weighted on the buyer side of the business. They haven't built up their Sphere database. They're not getting the come list me calls. They're weighted on the buyer side of the business. So they slowly, that starts to change over time. You get into it 1 or 2 years, all of a sudden your business starts to get a little more balanced. And at different production levels, and I would say, prices have gone up a lot, but for a long time, agents up to $5 or $6 million in business, and maybe even up to 8 now, they have been able to have really balanced businesses. When I say that, I mean 50% buyer business, 50% seller business. They can have a pretty good quality of life. But if you ever look around at any high achievers, highly productive agents that get above certain production levels, their business always gets weighted on the seller side. Why? Because of leverage, because of time. That's the lever. So if you go find somebody who's doing a ton of business, unless they're geared for buyers and set up with Zillow and they buy leads and they do all that kind of work, they're always going to be weighted on the seller side of the business. And so one of the things that you need to start getting focused on is proactively, intentionally working on your listings. So just wanted to mention that. If you want to have a good work-life balance, good quality of life, does anybody remember, who in here was in the business in 2020, 2021 when everything went crazy and got overheated? A lot of people. A lot of buyers, right? How much less efficient was your time with buyers? If you're having dinner and you got a text, if you didn't throw your fork down and run out the door and go show the house, you might lose the deal. How many times did you have to write offers on homes that they didn't get the home? For years when it was slow, if you wrote an offer, you were probably going to work it out and make a deal. You'd work with buyers in 2021, even 22, multiple offers. You end up writing 4, 5, 6 offers with one buyer before they finally got a house. Think about your time and the efficiency. If you got a listing during that time, you got a squeak here. If you got a listing during that time, you were the one getting all the offers. It was money in the bank. It was guaranteed. And so you got to shift your mindset towards the value of being a great listing agent and what it means to your life, your time, your use of time. It's the true lever. So I want to mention that. I think everybody here probably knows me, but just in case you don't, I know there are a few new faces here, but my name's Todd Stock. I'm the broker owner of RE/MAX Results. I've been in the business 30 years, had my license 31 years now. Been an owner for 21 years, been coaching agents the whole time. Sold real estate for 17 years full-time, had a team. and then in 2013 merged our company with Larry Phillips in Fort Wayne, moved my family down here, phased out of selling, and have been managing and coaching and working with agents ever since. Over those years of working with agents, we've been able to pick up a lot of things that I think are boots on the ground, in the trenches, tangible things that you need to know. We all go to seminars all the time. We hear speakers. I'm not a speaker. I'm an owner. I do this every day. I'm taking calls with sales issues. Our leadership team meets every Monday. They share all the stuff going on everywhere, all the issues, problems. I'm dealing with this every day. And so I've gleaned a lot of things from a lot of people, but a lot of this is just practical experience. So I want today to be interactive. I want to answer your questions. I want to share a lot of information that I think matter. So just want to mention that. I asked Larry to do a little historical perspective in terms of my experience and what I've seen over the years. Our company now has done over $8.6 billion in deals, but what was more impressive is that we've had over 53,000 transactions just in the company. And I only say this for one reason. I've been doing it a long time, but I've seen a lot. And you see patterns and things that pop up. You see trends where people get off track. And I have this saying all the time, there are no new fundamentals. There's some new twists on things. There's some new tools that are really cool in technology. But the fundamentals are the same. This is a people business. It's about relationship building. It's not about the houses. For those of you who I've met in maybe recruiting meetings, I talk about this a lot. It's not about the houses. It's like Lance Armstrong wrote that book years ago. It's not about the bike. It's not about the houses. It's about the people, your discipline, and how you can build relationships. So let's jump in. Today we're going to cover two things. I want to talk about this. We've done listing presentations and trainings before where we've made more of a comprehensive presentation on how to get leads, how to convert the leads, how to close, how to get the appointment, how to run the listing appointment, etc. And it's not going to be quite that way today. My goal for today is that you can walk out of here with one or two great ideas that you can implement in your business. That's our goal for every sales meeting, every roundtable, period. And it's the same here. So today we're going to cover a couple areas in particular. By the way, we'll address anything you want to, but we're going to cover strategies to secure listings, and we're going to cover managing seller expectations. I have seen these two areas, in my own opinion, in the last 5 years, just grossly slide in the agent world. When it was crazy, it was a reactive world. Agents were not very intentional about their business, generally speaking. They just had to answer the call, react, and run out the door because there was lots of low-hanging fruit and there was all this activity. And this activity, I think, blinded people from being really intentional about their business. And so we're going to cover those two areas today. One thing I wanted to mention today, I heard somebody say this recently. You know, when I say there are no new fundamentals, just some new ways to attack the fundamentals. The other thing I found really, a phrase that I thought was great, was that people don't really need taught, they need reminded. And so much of today is going to be maybe some good reminders of what you should be doing, habits you dropped, bad habits that have crept in, maybe some things that you used to do that you've forgotten about because you were busy, but people don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded. So some of today is going to be great reminders about the fundamentals that you're not doing. Some may be a fundamental or reminder that you should be doing that you never did, and you want to pick it up. So that's the goal. So what do you hope to get from this session? I'm going to jump down here. I want to ask everybody some questions and maybe assess in the back with the mic. We've got all kinds of great stuff up here, but does anybody want to share, if you walk out of here, what's one thing you want to know from today? And Michelle too. Thanks, Michelle. Anyone? Yes, Megan.
I want to know how to have a great listing presentation.
Okay.
What makes a great listing presentation?
Okay. Great. We can talk about that. And some of this, if we don't cover it today, we can follow up with you and get you what you need. We got a lot of amazing materials. Don't have time to go through it all today. Anybody else? Great listing presentation. Bueller? Anyone? Dave? Oh, and Jamie. Appropriate pricing?
Yeah, in a transitional market.
How to price in a transitional market. Yeah. Managing seller expectations.
How
Okay.
to deal with the seller after it's been on the market for a while, when you need to have further conversation on price.
A stagnant listing. How do you
Stagnant
deal with a stagnant listing? Okay. One of the things that prompted this meeting, the topic for today, was I've been in a lot of conversations with agents, and they have listings that didn't sell in a week or two, and the seller was mad. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Average market time in a healthy market's 180 days. Guess what it just went up to, at least in Allen County? 36. 36 days. 36 days was a 61% increase in days on market. It's crazy. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, about where sellers' expectations are and where the market really is right now, and where buyers' expectations are. And they're going this way right now, and the skill sets you guys need to have to get them closer together is going to determine how many transactions you get together, or listings you keep or you lose. And people haven't lost listings for a long time because they all just sold. So, okay, anything else that you hope to get out of today? Shannon.
Well, since the change happened and the news has laid down the groundwork to quote unquote inform people about how they can handle the whole thing,
Yeah.
the talk.
The
Talking
commission,
to the seller, but I have to be careful with what I say.
the discussion with the seller about buyer broker fees?
Yeah, and since the change happened after the lawsuit.
Okay. So buyer broker fees with the seller, how do you address that? I'm sure I'll have to be a little bit careful about that. We're going to speak in generalities, and I could give the disclaimer that anything we discuss in here is in theory and it doesn't mean anything, and you can charge whatever you want and it's a free market, right? But there is a discussion you can have in theory with the seller about what that all means. And I will tell you right now, before we get there, we're all making it a lot more complicated than we need to. It's not an issue with buyers and sellers. Sellers want to sell and buyers want to buy, and we're just getting in the way much of the time right now. So, okay, Tug. Oh, was there another one? Oh, Judy, sorry. Hey, Michelle, can I have you give her that mic? Just so everybody out on the live stream can hear us. Judy Rao, thanks.
Why list now as opposed to after the holidays next year?
Aha, why list now around the holidays? Okay. Okay. Tug.
What are the best strategies or best places to find proactively sellers?
How do you find sellers? Okay. Got it. Great. Anything else? Okay, so how do I give a great listing presentation? Probably can't dive into all that today, but we can provide you with some amazing materials and then talk a little bit about the presentation. Pricing the transitional market. We're going to touch base on the CMA and how you do that. We can't take too much of a dive into it today. We did talk at length about it. We just did a great CMA workshop, which we have recorded. If anybody wants to see that, we have an amazing CMA adjustment guide on how to price and the philosophy of approaching it. Mention that to you. Managing seller expectations and how to deal with a stagnant listing. We are going to talk about that today, Jamie, which I think is going to become much more of an issue. And then why list now going into the holidays? We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then where do you find sellers? I think we're going to address a lot of that stuff. The only thing maybe not in depth would be the CMA and the full listing presentation. Although we can talk in principle and concept a little bit about how to give a great listing presentation. We can follow up on any of that stuff. So anything else before I jump right in? Awesome. You know what I'm going to do before I jump in? I always forget to take a selfie with all you in the background. So let's do this. Everybody say hello. 1, 2, 3. Everybody say hi. Hello. Hi. All right, thanks. Okay. I'm going to present a lot of information, and again, this is not going to be fluid in terms of step by step by step. It's going to be lots of different things that you can address or deal with. You take what you want that you want to incorporate in your business. Okay, so back to Judy's question. In the next 5 weeks, you are all going to spend more time with humans that you have deep relationships with than any other time in the year. Period. Who's taking trips for Thanksgiving? Who's having Thanksgiving? Who's going to Thanksgiving? Who has more than one Christmas they're going to go to with everybody that they know in their sphere of influence? It's massive opportunity. It's not about the houses, it's about the people. One of the reasons why I like the timing of this, we had to bump it a week. Thanks for still being here. But we're heading into the holidays. We always talk a lot about people that have had good years or down years. They tend to shut it down right now. And it's the kiss of death for next year. The people that throw themselves into this time of year, you just set yourself up to just springboard first quarter. When the weather's crappy, when you don't think anybody wants to sell, you have an opportunity. It's about the people. It's about conversations. We're going to talk a little bit about all the lead gen and ideas. It's all about just getting the appointment, which is what? So you can have a conversation. You're going to have more opportunities to have more conversations. What's everybody going to ask you about at all your Thanksgiving and Christmas parties? How's the market? Every time, right? And if they don't know you're in the business, how in the hell can you be a secret agent? They need to know you're in the business. And if they know you're in the business, they're all going to ask. 5 weeks, maybe 6. You're going to have tons of opportunity right now. Back to Judy's question, I'll just throw this in. If you want to list during the holidays, your house usually looks great. It's decorated to the nines. And people that are not serious lookers don't look during the holidays. But people that have to buy a house look during the holidays. So there you go. And they don't have to waste their time on wasted showings, lookers. If they have 2 or 3 showings or 5 in December, they're probably 5 good showings. End of story. And if you need to revisit it first year and it doesn't sell, fine. But that would be my best answer to any seller. But take advantage of where you're headed right now. You've got to be willing to talk about it all the time. I think when I was prepping last night with Melissa for this, we talked about the 50 story. John's business plan was 50. That was it. He was a relentless relationship builder every day of his life, everywhere he went. Lunch, several of you know him, golf course, whatever he was doing, a board meeting, he was just building relationships everywhere. That's what drove it. So take advantage of where you're headed right now. So what I want to talk about is everyone's going to ask you, how's the real estate market, right? So one of the things I thought I could do today was give you a really quick synopsis of where the market is today, take 1 or 2 or 3 things out of this to share with people at Thanksgiving or Christmas, okay? When are rates going to come down? Are they probably going to ask you that? Probably. How are rates going right now? So let's talk about this. Here's the scoop. Rates are going to decline a little bit. Not a lot. This tells the whole story. These are all the forecasters. They're going to keep creeping down. What do they think they're going to creep down to? About 6, maybe a little under, maybe a little over. What are they at right now? I don't even know. 7? Yeah, they're going to get down around 6. Anybody who follows Buffini or any of the talking heads, they all think the threshold is it gets below 6 and the whole, tsunami of buyers and everybody wants to do stuff. The truth is they get down around 6 and they bounce around there, it's going to be a really good market. There's a ton of key indicators that look really good. But that's the story. Now you know. Okay, inventory. Why has inventory been so bad? I think this comes up sometimes. Is it getting better? Yes. I just said average days on market went up 61% to 36 days, which still isn't great. The truth is this about inventory and why we're here big picture. We're still dealing with the Great Recession of 08 and 09. Builders and developers got wiped out, and they underbuilt for a long time. And they're still trying to catch up. You got population growth, millennials, everything going on, and they just can't keep up. And that's the story. So if that comes up, it's going to continue to get better. They're ramping up, but they're still playing catch up. And so this crunch, this old 180 days on the market is a balanced market. We haven't seen it for a long time, and we may not. Inventory is still going to be tough. And if inventory is tough, if you're a listing agent, you control your destiny. There were 29.2% more homes actively for sale on a typical day in October compared with the same in 2023, making the 12th consecutive month of annual inventory growth and the highest since 2019. So we're going to continue to see inventory grow, which is going to balance this buyer-seller competitiveness out. It's going to take the urgency out of the market. I thought this was really interesting when I prepped for today. Buffini and a lot of people predicted that this year was going to be a lot better. Right now, we're on track to be even lower in terms of units than last year at 4.6 million units. They think it's bottomed now. Next year, we're projected at 5.2. Barring any sort of cataclysmic event in the economies or wars or anything crazy like that, they think it's going to continue to get better and we're going to come back off the bottom. So next year looks pretty good. It's going to be better than this year. Is it going to be crazy? No, which is why you've got to be more intentional and stop winging it. This happens a lot. How many people go on showings and they bring the dad or the mom or the aunt or the uncle and they just kill your deal instantly? They find everything wrong with the house. How many people are going to be at Christmas dinner and someone's going to say, well, I know this. I wouldn't buy a damn house for another 4 or 5 years. I think we're going to have a big crash, right? Or after this election or whatever they want to say. There's a fundamental big difference, and you need to be armed with the truth and facts, and it's this. The housing crisis that we had last time, the mortgage debt in the country was $9.7 trillion. The equity homeowners had was 8.2. America was upside down on their homes. So when Uncle Ralph has 2 old fashions and he gives you a hard time about your business this Christmas, you can say, well, actually, that's totally not true anymore. The country was upside down because of the mortgage crisis on equity. Right now, there's $35 trillion of equity in homes, and there's only $13 trillion in debt. Big picture, what does that mean? I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. America is pretty equity rich on their homes right now. Equity rich, which is going to lead to a lot of opportunity I'm going to talk about in a little bit too. But people aren't going to lose their homes, and there's not going to be a pricing crash because they're going to sell their homes. They're not going to get in trouble. They have all this equity. They're not going to give it away. There's not going to be a foreclosure boom. They're going to make changes and moves and downsize or do whatever they have to, but they're not going to lose that equity. It's really a critical thing to share when people are when you run into the doomsday naysayers. This is an important fact to share with them. Home prices. I'm going to keep this really brief. Things have normalized. All the predictors, they're from 4.4 down to 0.3, which is pretty flat. The average is 2.5% price increase next year. Pretty flat, much more normal. In most markets, 2 to 6% is really normal, 2 to 4, 2 to 5. We're getting back to a much more normal market, and that is critical. So if you buy a home this year, is it going to go up 15%? You're going to flip it next year and make some money? Probably not. Real estate is a long game. It's a long play. So when you're advising buyers and sellers, I think Jared James just did a video on this the other day. When's the right time to buy if you're buying? The right time to buy is driven by you and your life circumstance, not the market. Because if you need a home, you're going to move in a home, and you're going to live there for a while because it's the right thing to do for your family. And when you do, you slowly reduce what you owe, and the market over time will grow. But flipping and this whole segment of the market about this churn, a lot of that's going to go away. So I want to mention that. So, really quick, I'm going to mention this too. I'm going to jump down here again. What's your biggest challenge in obtaining listings? So Dave and Pam are great. Dave texted me this idea literally yesterday. He said, why don't we do some easels in the back? Everybody can write down some of the stuff that they want to do. So what's your biggest challenge in obtaining listings? Pricing, lead follow-up, how do you stand out? How do I express my value? Listening and not talking too much. Does anybody know any realtors who talk too much? I want to talk with a few other agents before making a decision. The stall, which is really probably a no. You haven't won them over. I like buyers so I can see houses. How to obtain new listings, finding their motivation. Not staying in contact with my clients, communicating the value of my services. Okay, we got more than one page, Dave? Oh, uh-oh. Okay, another one on pricing. Let's see if I can keep this up here. Okay. Getting past the psych out that fancy realtors get the gig. What is that? Explain that to me. I wrote it. All right, talk to me. Talk to me.
So what I mean is that, okay, so you have the high-end markets. You've got some agents who I call the fancy realtors. They tend to take those certain particular neighborhoods. Well, sometimes I'm like, I'd like to have that listing in that particular neighborhood, but fancy realtor 1, 2, and 3 own that area. So I need to get over the psych out and say, you know what? I can do the listing in that same neighborhood over the fancy realtors.
Okay. The fancy ones. With fancy cars and all that stuff. So, okay, great point. I'm going to talk about it real quick, and we'll address a lot of things that might help in that area. But this may or may not be a popular statement. Jared James shared it recently, but I believe it's true. Confidence usually wins over competence. So y'all got to get out of your own way when you're going to go on stuff, on appointments. Here's the deal. When I am confident with a client, an agent, or a seller, if I'm confident, they're going to be confident. They want to be confident in my abilities. What do sellers really want? They want to know that I can sell their home. I'm reading Jordan Cohen's book, who's the #1 RE/MAX agent in the world. He's amazing, but one of the key emphases is in the beginning of this book. We're going to give one of those books away today, too, by the way. It's awesome. This guy does it every day. He has 2 assistants and himself. And the last year he did $325 million in sales. He sold Kobe Bryant's house. Sold everybody. He's the man. He's just a normal guy who figured out what people really want. But he said they need to know, they need to be confident in you and your abilities. And so if you're not, you're killing yourself before you walk in the door. So you need to know that what you do works, you can do it, and you need to be confident in your delivery with them because they can't feel confident if you're not. Back to the buyer-broker conversation, we talked about this a lot, and we're not here about that today, but remember this summer we spent the whole year training on this thing. How you feel about it, how you've internalized how you feel about your marketing plan, your ability as a listing agent to get a buyer and to get it sold has more of an impact on them than anything else you do or say. So you've got to feel good about the services you provide and what you're going to do for them, period. And that's the deal. And the other way to do it is just do it as much as you can. I told somebody the other day, I think it was Megan, in a call. Fail fast. She said, somebody maybe asked if you could do it all over again, what would you do? And I'll just share this. If I could do anything over again when I started almost 30 years ago, I would have been a lot more willing to fail a lot faster. I'd have gone on more appointments. I'd have botched them up. I'd have lost listings. I'd have written offers that didn't get done. I just would have accelerated my learning process because until you really internalize and learn some things and throw yourself in situations, you're not going to learn at a high level. And so I would definitely do that. And so on these high-end listings, I'll tell you this too. When I finally quit selling, I had a real niche market, which was a pretty high-end market on the lakes. And what I found was that these people, for the most part, there's always some outlier story. They were great people. They happened to be where they were in life because of probably a lot of really great attributes, qualities, and they were higher character people most of the time. As much as we all want to say people that do really well are jerks or they're cutthroat or whatever, it's the exact opposite. They have a lot of responsibility usually. They're highly effective in the market. They usually have responsibility for lots of people. They maybe own a business or they're a really high-level attorney or whatever it is. They have skill sets that are really valuable, and they're just like us. And they want to know somebody that's going to take care of them, that can get the job done, and that is just a good human. And that is what they wanted. And they wanted no BS. And they usually had higher BS meters because they get it all the time. So they want someone to be truly authentic. Here's what I do. I can do a great job for you. And I'm willing to pivot. I want to be able to have a conversation with you because we're going to, if you hire me, and this is what Jordan Cohen always says, I appreciate the opportunity of you hiring me. They're the boss. And you're going to partner and you're going to help them get it done. And so I think on the high-end stuff, that's a really big deal. You got to demonstrate some unique things in the marketing, but that's all doable. But getting in front of them and being confident is everything. So I'm going to jump in. We're going to cover a lot of these things. So who on here would like a listing right now? If you could get a listing today, you would do it. Almost everybody, right? Melissa and I went round and round about this kind of concept. The truth is this. You don't need a listing. You need a system that gets you listings. You can get a listing today, and it's going to be great, and you're going to get some calls, and you're going to sell it, and then in December, you're going to have a closing by the end of the year, and it's great. But if you don't have something that you just do in your business to continually get listings, this is what I do, and it doesn't have to be one specific way, you are not going to win the game. Your business is going to be like this every year, every quarter, up and down. I'm really slow. I'm really busy. I'm really slow. I'm having a really down year. Oh my God, I'm so slammed. I hear it all. It's the consistency that goes away. You need a system. How many times do you hear athletic teams talk about this? We just commit to the process and we don't worry about the outcome. It's the same thing. No new fundamentals. Commit to your process. I'm not going to give you a process or system today that's one size fits all. You figure out what works for you with your style that you can do consistently, and you're going to gain mastery. And you're going to do the boring, mundane things that you don't want to do because you're going to start to get some results, and then you're going to get traction. And then when you get traction, you get those results, you make some money, and then you start psychologically equating the boring, mundane work with success. That's the magic of all this stuff, by the way. That's the magic. You've got to flip it where those activities that are boring and mundane equal really great stuff. And when you first start, you're not getting the results. So just commit to the process, and you'll be amazed. You'll flip that whole process of creating success in your life. So you need a system. So your system in general needs to be this. And again, find your own way to do it. But you need to be able to consistently be generating leads all the time. I see this all the time. You get slow, you get busy servicing, right? I say this all the time. 90% of you probably heard me say this. I break the business into two categories: the service side and the lead generation, business development side. And the service side is, for most when they get in the business, everything you want to do. You want to show houses, you want to negotiate contracts, you want to post on social media, you want to negotiate inspection responses, you're doing contracts. That's all service, and it's all stuff you get to do at a high level when you get a client. But the number one reason agents don't survive in the business is their inability to consistently generate leads. So you got to find a way where you're always looking for business. I used to have a saying, all day, every day, everywhere you go. Converting leads to listing appointments. The goal is to get the appointment. And then post-listing strategies. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit today. There's a cycle, a life cycle to this whole process that never stops. And so business turns into more business. The gold mine in the business, the true gold in the business is your past clients and sphere of influence. That's the gold. And people that keep hunting for new stuff, they're usually neglecting these deep, wonderful relationships that can change their business. So that's the process, however you want to make that. But everything that you're going to try to do is to get appointments. It's to get conversations. I got a great quote I'm going to share with one of our agents who has moved on, but it's a great quote. But the goal of everything is to get appointments. You can't get a listing on the phone. You can't get a listing necessarily from a social media post that catches their eye, or a mailer. I have a buyer. We're going to get in some of the options. You're going to have an appointment and conversation to get it done. So there's kind of 4 areas I'm going to talk about today. You can figure out how you want to incorporate all this into your world and what you're doing. But direct outreach, which is a lot of things you can do, they're proactive ways to get business. I hear this all the time. I talk about this every meeting we have. We'll hire people, and they'll come in for a while. They'll work on the boring, mundane lead gen activities. They don't get results, and then I don't see them. They don't come in. They're not doing the work. And then they'll get a client. They'll get a listing. And then they're around the office all the time. And we all get to hear about their listing, and they're excited, which is cool. Or they'll get a buyer, and then they're around. But there's this mindset, which is not good, that I don't have anything to do if I don't have any clients. The truth is, you've got stuff to do 12 hours a day, every day, whether you got clients or not. And it's this lead generation stuff. And it's where people drop the ball. And then that's where they get back into this cycle. Building a referral network, we're going to talk about that. Connecting with people, digital and social media, it's critical. And then events and workshops. Everybody does that different. Dave and Pam are the best at it that I've seen. They get a ton of business from it. So I'm going to jump in. The number one thing you can do is to re-engage your database. I recently heard a podcast from Buffini, and he had this guy come to him that was a top producer, And he said, I'm really slow. I don't know what's going on. My business just dived. And Buffini said to him, how many people in your database? And I think he had 150. And he said, when's the last time you just called everybody in your database? And the guy said, I haven't. I mean, I call some of them sometimes, and I do this and that. He goes, you need to call everybody in your database. He goes, well, what am I going to say to him? He goes, I don't care. Just call them and say, hey, was thinking about you and wanted to check in. How's the family? How are you? Don't talk about real estate. He goes, I'm not going to talk to you anymore until you do that. The guy called him back. He got 4 listings. That's how simple this can be. Simple doesn't mean easy, but simple is what it is. Connect with people, have the conversations. So re-engaging your database before you do anything else, if you're not doing that really well, you all hear me say this a lot in business planning, don't waste your time doing anything else until you're taking care of your database at a high level. Whenever I have an agent come to me that's struggling, they're trying to get their business revived, the first thing I tell them to do is, do you have a database? And what are you doing to stay in touch and communicate, stay close to your database? Are you making 18 emotional deposits a year into your database? Number 1. Number 2, re-engage your database. Just call them. Call all your past clients. Check in on them. There is business right there, right now. And if they aren't ready to list now, I guarantee you in the next 6 months, there's people in your database right now that is getting ready to do business, and you're just not the one that's connecting with them. So that's where you got to start, period. All right, here's an email idea. Great idea. Taglines are a big deal. They call it copywriting now. It's kind of a hot topic. Great taglines pull people in. Send an email to your database and said, are you thinking of selling in the next 6 months? If you are, reply to this message, and I'll send you the 6 most important things you need to do to get your home ready to list. You didn't say, can I list your home? You're offering, you triggered a question, and then you're going to offer to help. You're not saying, can I come list? Reply to this. Give them something of value, no strings attached. I say this all the time. You need to have an abundance mindset to just serve and help people all the time. Great idea. If you did this right now, I guarantee if the whole group did this right now, you're going to get somebody, and they may not want to list until next March or next summer or whenever, but they're going to want to know what they need to be doing to their home to get it ready, and you become a resource to do that. Great little idea. I've been talking about this one forever, another idea. I'm going to keep trying to roll through these. Unsolicited video CMAs to your past clients and sphere of influence. Does anybody in here do this? Anybody? Heather, Jim, Teresa. Any success with it?
It's got me a referral.
Gotten you a referral. So it was worth the minute of the video. So nearly half of residential properties in the U.S. are equity rich, meaning they have over 50% equity in their homes. What does everybody want to know about their home all the time? What's it worth? It's like they get to count their piggy bank because when they find out how much their home's worth, right? They all want to know, even if they don't want to sell. It's an opportunity to engage with them. But a lot of people, there's several other emails you can send off these unsolicited video CMAs. If you're able to use a green screen, you can take their estimate off Zillow, screenshot it, make it the backdrop, and say, oh my God, I wanted to send you this video. Did you see what Zillow did? It says your home's worth. I think it might be worth more. I'm not sure, but if you want me to take a deeper dive and let you know, just send me a text. I'll check it out and I'll let you guys know. Or tell them what you think their home's worth if you want to do it a different way. There's lots of different approaches. You can say, hey, I'm getting ready to list a home in your neighborhood, and I thought about you guys. I did a quick CMA. I think your home's worth somewhere in this ballpark. Have you guys thought about selling at any time in the future? How are you guys doing? Those kind of things create really meaningful conversations for sellers. So I would highly encourage you to do it. Another simple concept. I did one of my weekly videos on this a long time ago. Buy lunch, not leads. If you want to have meaningful relationships, deeper, more enriched relationships are where you can't lose. Who in here loves to get the come list me call? Right? That's ever our dream, right? Oh my gosh, hey, Eric, will you come out and list the house? Okay, I'm going to pick on Becky. She's in the back because we just talked this past week. She made a comment to me that was totally in line. We were working on this when she said it, and it just clicked for me. But if you want to go have, when we say go deeper, not wider with your database, have more meaningful, deeper relationships, make the connection stronger. She said, one of the things I like to do with my clients is either take them to coffee or lunch or dinner. And then she made a comment that to me was like fantastic. She goes, I've never not taken someone to dinner and they didn't work with me. Because she made a much deeper connection. She invested in the relationship. And you could do mailers all day long, but if you have a really meaningful dinner or lunch with somebody that you care about, that's in your sphere of influence, or a past client that you sold a house to 8 years ago, you're going to get the come list me call. So block off the time to do it. It's really critical. Geographic farming. Does anybody in here run a market to a geographic farm? I see a few people, not many. Couple rules of thumb on geographic farming. It's highly effective if you commit. It's highly effective if you stay the course. If you don't, it's a waste of money. But you can absolutely become the expert in an area if you'll make a commitment to work that area. So, couple rules of thumb. You should always start where you live. But after that, if you decide where you want to go, you may say, I want to get in this market. I want to get in this high-end neighborhood or this high-end lake or whatever. You can do that. But one of the things you need to do is run the last 12 months sales in the area that you want to get and make some determinations if it's worth the money or if it's going to be easier or more difficult. Rule of thumb is this: when you go in and look at a market, if there is an agent who has 20% or more of that market, it's going to be tougher to break into that market because they've already got somebody who kills it in that neighborhood. They've got name recognition, all those kind of things. And your goal should be to try to go in and capture 10% of the market. But if nobody does have that and it's wide open, if you ran, like I would say here in Allen County or in some of the outlying markets, you run some neighborhoods and you look at the last 12 months sales, you can tell if they've got a player that really dominates that market and is investing in that neighborhood. But if they're not, it's ripe for the taking, and then make the investment and commit. But you need to be committing to that neighborhood at least 18 times a year, which is hard. Here's another rule of thumb, write this down. You should invest, if you're going to geographic farm, $2 per household per month per year. It's $24 a year. Sounds like not a lot, right? Depends on the neighborhood, right? My neighborhood, I think, has over 800 homes in it. It's 19 grand. That's 20 grand. That's a lot of money, right? But then what you do is you just look at the neighborhood and say, well, how many homes in our neighborhood sold last year? 18 out of 800? Maybe even if it was 15%, right? What would that be? Start looking at the average commission rates and the average prices, and then you can actually figure out the return on investment. If 20 homes sold and I want to get 10% of the market, that's 2. If 25 sold, that's 2.5 or 3. Let's say 3 homes sold. And the average commission rate in that neighborhood is 8 grand. It's 24 grand. That's a wash. That doesn't work, right? I'm just saying that's the mindset you need to look at when you want a geographic farm. And so I think you're going to find that the numbers are a lot higher than that, and your money will be better spent if you're going to make the commitment in an area where you can be more effective. Otherwise, go find somewhere else to spend your time. Any questions about that? Some ideas on this geographic farming, and we could talk about it all day. But a neighborhood newsletter. Everybody loves an authority in the neighborhood. Some associations do one, some don't. But you could do a monthly newsletter very easily with all the sales, when the garage day sale is, when the pool opens and closes, anything going on. You can marquee a homeowner's landscaping. You can do all that stuff. Food truck days, dumpster day. I know an agent in my neighborhood that every year after the garage sale weekend, they host a dumpster and donuts day. They hit everybody with postcards. The association supports it. And everybody, after the garage sale is done, all the crap they didn't sell and they want to get rid of, they can just take it down there, throw it in, and guess who gets to meet them all and brands himself? It's a great idea. It's highly effective. Business-to-business partnerships within the neighborhood. You know who knows when people are getting ready to sell a lot? Painters, landscapers, all the people that help people get their home ready to sell. Go partner with them and say, hey, I know you guys, for me in Fort Wayne, it's leapers. They dominate my neighborhood. One of the leapers lives in my neighborhood. If I was selling, I would go right to them and say, look, let's come up with some partnership. I'm going to refer everybody I know to get landscaping and lawn services from you guys. If you hear about anybody considering selling, call me. I will take great care of them. Form these partnerships. It's a big deal. Sponsor the association newsletter. Some associations do a newsletter. Go to them and say, I'll tell you what, if I pay for the printing and the postage, can I have a section in there and run an ad? You're going to block everybody else out and get in front of every homeowner in your neighborhood, and you're supporting your association at the same time. Pay for the postage. Provide materials. Just different ideas. Not everybody has a neighborhood where they can do that, but it's an idea if you're in one. Okay. We could talk about this one all day long. Who in here works FSBOs and expireds? Couple, a few. Yeah. Who's afraid of them? They're mean to me. They're nasty to me. They're rude. They hurt my feelings, right? So let's talk about FSBOs and expireds. You can go cold call 100 people, and you might find 1 to 5 that maybe want to sell. Or you could call 5 FSBOs, and you talk to 5 people who want to sell their home. Again, get back to your time and leverage. So you have to know how to handle them. You have to know what to do. The number one thing I'll tell you about FSBOs and expireds is don't rush in and be too aggressive. I heard this great saying the other day. People, when you come at them hard, they're already mad. They didn't list for a reason, or their home didn't sell, and realtors are mud. You need to build some rapport first, because they're going to blow a lot of smoke. They're going to push back, right? I have this old saying, if I had Dave up here and I said, put your hands up, and I pushed Dave, what would Dave do? He'd push back, right? It's an instinct, right? It's the same thing psychologically. When you push on people, they push back. So guess what? You got to have great questions. You got to diffuse. Guess what smoke does with time? It dissipates. The conversation's the same way. If there's an analogy you can remember about your interpersonal communications, is don't push, ask questions, be curious, make some connection, and the smoke will dissipate until you can have a more effective conversation. But they are highly productive, and we are going to start to see more expireds. I have a bunch of information. I didn't share it. It was all this stats. The expired listings are growing, and they're going to continue to grow because the market's slowed down, sellers' expectations are here, buyers are here, and we're going to start to have more unhappy sellers that aren't getting their property sold because their agents didn't do it right, didn't price it right, or they had unrealistic expectations. So these are highly effective things to do. The rule is this: be their broker before you're their broker. I'm going to go back to this abundance mindset thing again. You just need to call and offer to help them. I'm going to talk about FSBOs here in just a second. Just scratch the surface a little bit. But serve them. Couple $1 million questions. Yes, Debbie.
Not that this is a $1 million question, but how do you get phone numbers with cell phones being number one and numbers not being published for expires?
Yes. I'm going to show you in just a minute.
All right.
Yes. $1 million questions. What do you ask a FSBO? Hey, this is Dave McDaniel from RE/MAX. I'm just checking in with you. How are you doing? Great. Hey, I just had a quick question. Sorry to bother you. Do you still want to sell your home? Not, do you want to list your home? Not, will you talk to me? Not, can I come out and visit it? But do you still want to sell your home? That's the question. That is the segue to everything. Because they do. And you're going to get it all. Yeah, but I'm tired of you guys calling me. I've had 6 of you call me the first week, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, if I had a buyer, would you allow me to show it or sell it for you? You don't have to list with me. I remember saying, you don't have to list with me, but I have buyers. If I have a buyer for yours, or I get one, can I sell it? Because what do they want? They want their home sold. I say this all the time. Realtors are notorious for using inside lingo on the outside world. We get a listing and we're all jacked up, and we go tell everybody, I got a great listing. Guess what buyers and sellers don't care about? That you got a listing. They care that you sell homes. That's what they want you to be really effective at. And that's an example of us not seeing things from their perspective. And so, well, if I had a buyer, and then they might say yes, and then the next step would be, well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things I can do to help you, but I can't sell your home if I haven't seen it and don't know what it's about. Would it be okay if I swing by tonight or tomorrow night and just spend 15 minutes, do a quick walkthrough? I appreciate your time, and then if I get anybody, I'll call you. That's it. Now, when you go, you have a chance to leave me your materials, and I'm going to talk about some other things you can do to help. But that's a great way to just make the introduction. You're offering to help. You're offering to sell it for them. You're offering value, not just trying to get the listing, which, by the way, is all about you, right? You got to focus on them. And then expireds. Same kind of process, except the million-dollar question is this. Why do you think your home didn't sell? And just don't talk. Listen. And guess what? They're going to tell you why their home didn't sell. That their agent wasn't great. The market was bad. My neighbors sold theirs for $2 less. They listed it a week after me, and I'm mad at them, and whatever. All that stuff. They're going to tell you all that. But what's the question for them, too? Well, if you still want to sell, if I had a buyer, if I could sell your home, would you still be interested in letting me come out and sell your home? That's the value. So you guys got to flip it. It's not complicated. But the number one reason agents don't do great with expired and FSBOs, does anybody know why? Who said that? Yes. The follow-up. You don't stay in the game long enough. The number one reason agents don't do well with expireds, FSBOs, and to be really frank, online leads, which aren't great, but it's poor follow-up. People are great at calling a for sale by owner the first week, but will you call them every week for 8 weeks, provide them value, visit them, and call and check in on them, and send them things, help them stage, give them the disclosures, advise them on whatever they can, check in and say, how'd it go? Did you guys have any showings this week? I had some buyers and they just didn't come in town. I thought I was going to be able to maybe show up, but I couldn't. Do you guys need anything else? You're just their broker and they haven't signed anything. You're just trying to serve and help them. You don't stay in the game long enough. And you want to talk about a come list me call? I made a living off this my first 3 or 4 years in the business. They would call and be like, will you just come out and list the house? We thought we had it sold and we got this inspection, and would you believe that they ask us, all this stuff, right? That's all the stuff that we navigate and help them work through. They would just call and say, we're just ready to get it listed. We got to sell. Now we got to get relocated in 6 weeks. We thought we had a few months. And so the problem is this. Nobody wants to do the work up front. And coming out of the last 5 years, people haven't had to do it as much. So invest in them, be their broker, and don't go away. The same is true for online leads and all your follow-up. If you stay in the game, you can't lose. But everybody's looking for a quick fix. You got to stay in the game. So there are 4 personality types that tend to want to be for sale by owners. I was just going to touch on these briefly. We could do a whole presentation on this. So they tend to all fall into 4 categories. The do-it-yourselfer, the money saver, the we're just testing the market people, and the I hate salespeople people. Right? They all tend to fall into these categories. Would you all agree? What do you all think is the most popular category? The money savers. Agents always think that. It's not. It's different. So let's talk about it. The do-it-yourselfer. What's important to them? They don't necessarily care about money, but they want to prove that they can do it. They're do-it-yourselfers. They tend to be administrators, principals, teachers. I can learn this and I can do it, right? The money saver, they're all about the money, right? Trying to save a nickel. Testing the market. Well, we're not sure yet. We just, we're not sure what we're going to do. We thought we'd just put it on the market, see what we could get. Maybe they're too high. And then I hate salespeople. They don't like salespeople. So here's the real, those are the 4 definitions of them. The real question you need to think about, if you can quickly identify them, is how do you handle them, right? How do you handle a do-it-yourselfer if you're a great agent? Does anybody want to take a stab at it? Let me go alongside you. Yes. Debbie. They're the boss. They are the boss. Yes. Yes. Hey, I understand you want to do it, and somebody in your profession, what you're doing, you certainly have the capabilities to do it. I'll tell you what, why don't you let me help you do it even at a higher level? I'll get you whatever you need. You don't need to hire me. Right? Remember I keep talking about not pushing? You don't need to hire me because you're going to serve them. But maybe I can help you do it more efficiently, get it sold quicker. Maybe I can help you make a little bit more money. Do you guys need a stager? Do you know about the state disclosure form that everybody has to use, whether they use a broker or not? Serve them and help them do it themselves. You're going to find that if they have any trouble at some point, they're going to engage you. Or if they do sell it themselves, they might have you help them close it, or they might use you to go buy a home. But that's how you deal with them. The money saver. How do you deal with them? I'll tell you what. If I could show you a way to sell your home and not have it cost you a dime, would you be willing to just have me come out and show you how you might be able to do that? Or would you be willing to have an agent sell your home if it didn't cost you anything? And then you might be able to go out and show them the market value, where they're at, and how you think you can get them more money from your marketing plan, and they might give you a shot. But even if they don't, and even if you can't make that turn into zero based upon your CMA or your market, when they get frustrated, they're going to call you. But you got to check in with them every week, that whole process. We have a whole FSBO campaign process that's 8 weeks. If anybody wants it, send us a message. We'll get it to you. Testing the market. This is critical about this. You know the real reason testing the market people don't list? They don't know what they're going to do. They don't have a plan. We don't know where we're going to go yet, or we have time. They are all, testing the market people are going to list. They're just not really ready yet to make a commitment to hire someone who will get it sold, because they don't know where they're going. They're not sure. There's some component to why they're selling that they haven't figured out yet. And so what you need to do is figure out, well, where are you guys headed? What's your timeline? What's going on with the kids? What about your job? And what you need to do is go help them solve that problem, and then the house is easy. They'll be like, you know what? This is great. We love that neighborhood. You found us that place. We're ready to get the house on the market. That's the deal with them. You need to understand that. And then hate salespeople, right? They don't want to talk to you at all. How do you deal with them? Yeah, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to help, right? Everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. That's the saying. Hey, I understand what you're saying. I'm an ambassador for a lot of people in your area, and I just want to help you get it done if I can. I don't like people, pushy salespeople too, and God forbid, I'm sure there's a lot of agents that are really pushy. I don't want to do that, but if I can help you, I'd be glad to do that. That's it. Diffuse it. Help. Don't push. Those are the kind of 4 things. We were going to exclude that today, but I thought it'd be good just to touch base on them. And maybe just lower your resistance to call for sale by owners a little bit more. Lower the friction. Lower the inhibition to just make the calls. And as Megan said, fail faster on the calls. I made a lot of really crappy for sale by owner calls before I got good at them. But had I not done it, I would have never gotten really good at closing on for sale by owners. So it's just effort and time. Okay. I heard this just the other day. Little pro tip. Has anybody heard of a rent bow? You got FSBOs. What's a rent bow? I thought this was awesome. So here is another ripe source for you to go find inventory right now. So the market was crazy overheated, right? What were rates at the bottom? 2.5, right? Appreciation rates crazy, right? I'm going to say, I say it every training, you never know until the tide goes. You never know who's swimming with their pants off until the tide goes out, right? Right? You never do. Warren Buffett quote. How many nickel and dime wannabe investors in the last 5 years went out and wanted to build a portfolio and be investors and buy rental properties? A lot. And some of them are doing great. Commercial rates float. They are not like residential fixed rate mortgages. So when people bought in and bought 1 or 2 or 3 rentals or 6, and their rate was 3.5 on their commercial note, most of them have a 3 to 5 year little floating balloon. And guess what? They're all coming due. Rentals are harder than you think. You got to be geared for it. You got to be able to deal with a leaky toilet at 2 in the morning or whatever. And if they're struggling on getting occupants in there, and the rates have gone up significantly, all of a sudden commercial rates, by the way, if residential rates are 6, commercial rates are probably 7 or 7.5, just so you know. So all of a sudden a rate that goes from 3 to 7 on an investment property, the payment goes up significantly, and guess what their cash flow does? It goes away. So right now, if you just look at the rent columns in the paper or wherever you need to look and start calling landlords who are trying to rent their properties and say, hey, this is Dave from RE/MAX. I just thought I'd give you a call. I saw you're trying to rent your place out. Do you have it rented? Okay. Have you ever considered selling it? It's not that hard. No, I'm not considering selling it. Well, you know what? I'm just tired of it. And I know Dave's had rentals. He might say, well, I know, the game's changed a little bit on rentals. Appreciation rates aren't the same. That game is not what it was. It's a long play. And the people who don't have the resilience or the fortitude to stick with it, they might be thinking, I don't want to do this. I do have some nice appreciation, but my cash flow is gone. I want to get rid of them. Right? Or if they say, no, I have a portfolio, I'm building it, I'm really all in, and they're doing well. Great, guess what? This is a can't lose call. Because you say, well, that's awesome. It's great to hear it's going so well. Would you be interested in buying more properties for your portfolio if I ever come across anything really great? And you flip them to a buyer call. Why would you not build your database with people who own multiple properties? We work our database all the time for people who have one home. Investors can be a ripe, prime source for great inventory if you're willing to work it. And they're all either a buyer or a seller. Very few are going to be stagnant and they just, I've got 8, I'm good, right? And that call can go any direction you want. So, Rent Bows, new source, and you can look them up anywhere you want. Building a referral network. Does anybody actively work at creating referral partners outside of just individuals? Krista, Heather, yes? Any ideas what kind of people you try to get to? Krista.
I have a relationship with a nursing home slash assisted living slash they build condos for elderly, and we advertise in their magazine, so everyone who does a tour not only gets the magazine with our face as the 4th page, but they also get an email with our information.
Yep, awesome,
One of the largest ones in Fort Wayne.
great. Did everybody hear that?
And I actively give her gifts. When she goes into the community, I make baskets for her and she takes them out to all of her events and it has our information.
Yep, awesome. Any other ideas? It takes effort. You got to go take the time. You got to go do it, but it's huge. Financial advisors. Oh, Teresa, go ahead.
School events. I have a marketing partnership with my local school, high school, middle school, and I go to, I donate to their campaign. I have a poster at their at the high school. I'm in their winter and their spring program, so you're always out there. And I also just donate to like when they do like the football team, their vending section. You would just donate to them and have your marketing stuff there and just be there with your shirt on that says Remax and
Yep.
I've had so many people ask questions. Oh, sorry.
No, that's good.
I've had so many people ask questions just generally while they're waiting for popcorn and hot dog, and it just really builds, your pipeline and your sphere of influence, and just get your name out there. There's a lot of realtors in my small community, but it's just they love that personal touch and that you're willing to answer just general questions. So
Right.
just definitely get with your school, or I think it's been a big success for me in terms of just people are calling and emailing me and texting me and said, oh yeah, we're going to do this, or oh, I know somebody that wants to purchase a home here, and I've gotten a lot of good leads on that. So just keep working.
Thank you. Yeah, Krista.
She's not here, but I'm going to speak for my mentee. She did an Easter egg hunt at the Fort Wayne Fairgrounds, invited her husband's a police officer, so she had them bring the canine dog, and then she also invited the news to come. And it was well attended, and she gave out all of her information in bags for the kids for the Easter egg hunt. I want to say they did 4 different Easter egg hunts. She probably did 3,000 eggs. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But got her name out there. She was brand new. And listen, Samantha Shepard, if you want some marketing ideas, this chick has I'm learning from her, and I've been in the business a while. But I piggyback off of you for teachers. I quarterly go into the teacher's lounge and stock it up. And that school loves us.
Thanks, Krista. Yeah, Shannon's got one too.
I have an attorney that tosses me houses that were in a divorce, houses where there was, it's an estate where they moved on to assisted living or they passed away. That's
Yeah.
Death and divorce. So that's a good feeder system.
Death and divorce. There you go. Thanks, Shannon. Financial advisors, attorneys, relocation specialists. school and hospital administrators, different teachers. I want to throw one thing out there. For me, I got heavily involved in a couple community organizations. One in particular was full of community leaders. And two of the community leaders on one of the boards, one was the president of the university, the other was the CEO and the CFO of the hospital. And we became dear friends. We did a lot of charity work together. And guess what they started to do? Anytime new professors were hired or any new doctor was brought into the community, you need to find a way to make their life easier and help them. They don't want to deal with a tour. They don't want to have to get into the schools and drive them around for the day. Just say, have them call me. When are they coming in? We're going to do interviews, and they're going to meet our staff that afternoon at 3, but they're coming in the night before. If you could spend the morning with them, that would be great. I'd say, great. I'll have them acclimated to the entire community, school systems, housing, overview packets. Make it easy for them. So when they get those leads, you take something off their plate, and you make them look great. That's the deal. When that happened for me, it was a game changer. Started to get all the hospital administrators and the physicians in the community. I had first chance at all of them because I helped them. Did I spend a day or two with people who never got the job sometimes? Yep, I did. But I was pouring into those administrators, helping them make their life a lot easier. Did I miss anybody? Yes, Bob.
Join your Chamber of Commerce. I've gotten 2 listings and several buyers that I've added to my database just by being on the chamber board, because you attend events. They bring people together.
Yep.
You know, gold
It's people.
mine.
It's conversations and relationships. Okay. I don't need to go into this much. Everybody knows social media. It's a rabbit hole, right? But it's highly effective. So use social media for what it is. Check out for life events for people. You need to be on the different platforms. If you want to market yourself, they need to experience and get to know you a little bit. But use social media as an opportunity to have a conversation and connect with them. It can even be a DM or it can be a video. But you can participate in groups. You should all have a Facebook group of your database that's just your peeps that you can captively get to. Giveaways with just your database. Starbucks cards, holiday giveaways, turkey giveaways, anything. You need to be doing that. It's a highly efficient, cost-effective way to get to your people. I'm not going to dive into that too much because you could talk about it all day. So, all right. The growth of your business lies inside your business, not outside your business. So, leverage existing business. Business turns into business. I say this all the time. People might get a listing and then they go shotgun and spend a bunch of money marketing when they could just maybe get really targeted, specific, and leverage that listing at a higher level, and it would change everything. So obviously just listed, just sold cards, open house cards. But what can you do? What are some different ways to leverage it? Every active seller tends to have one seller referral while you're listed. You hear me? You got to be confident. You got to deliver great value. You got to make sure they know you care about them. But they all have one. If every listing you got you knew was going to turn into another listing, would you not find a way to tap into that? So we've had this saying, every action deserves a reaction. Every time you get a listing in an area, within 30 days there tends to be one more listing pop up. And within 60 days, 2 to 3 more listings pop up. It's just the way it works. So what can you do so you become the one that they're going to maybe call? Here's a bunch of ideas you can think about when you get listings. Let me back up here. So you can do open houses. I might be getting ahead of myself here, but go to the neighbors. You can say, hey, did you hear what your neighbor just did? You can send an email. You can call them. They just listed, I'm going to be doing an open house this weekend. By the way, I'm going to have a private open house that morning before the public's allowed in. If you and anybody in the neighborhood wants to come over that morning at 10, it's going to be private if you guys want to check it out. It's special, it's unique, it's different, it gets them there. You get a chance to connect with them. Leverage these open houses. There's an old agent who used to always do, I think it was 5 and 5 on each house on the sides and then 10 across the street as a rule that they would canvas. Whenever they got a listing, they circle prospected that listing. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But those are the rules. If you're willing to do the work and leverage it, you're going to get more business off of a listing. So many times we get a listing, we're excited about it, and we're going to do just listed cards, and we're going to get in the MLS and hire the photography. But are you consciously thinking, how can I market to the neighborhood because there's another one or two coming very soon, and I need to go get those too? Or I need to position myself that they think about me. All right, so who all knows Eric Thrasher? He moved to California a few months ago. He's one of our top agents for many years, one of the top agents in the market, master prospector. We just called him the other day when we were getting ready for this, and he literally sent me a text, and then we called him, and I told him I'm going to quote him today. He might be watching. So Thrash, this is for you. He said, we were talking about all these different ways, and he said, you and I both know that as long as you're talking to 30, 40 people in any given neighborhood, however you do that, you're going to find people who are getting ready to sell soon. You have to be willing to weed out the chaff and spit out the bones. You have to be willing to embrace rejection. But if there's a $10,000 or $30,000 commission after 30 or 40 sell calls, then why not get involved when talking to people rather than doing activities that they hope people will contact you? Of course, it's nice to build your brand and send out postcards and do social media and hand out flowers on Mother's Day, but eventually the goal is to talk to people. Does that not sound like Thrasher if you know him? Okay? So I'm not saying all the things we're talking about aren't wrong or right. They're all long-term branding and they create opportunity. But back to the goal is to get the appointment and the goal is to have conversations. You've got to be willing to engage in this contact sport of real estate, and you've got to be willing to have a lot more conversations. Think about what he said. If you knew that you could make 30 or 40 calls and make 30 grand, would you make them? Yes. Some would, some wouldn't. I asked everybody in a meeting years ago, I said, if I told you you had to call me every week for a year and I list my home and you'd make 20 grand, would you call me every week for a year? Most people say yes. In that meeting, a lot of people said no. I almost passed out. I was like, you wouldn't make one call a week for a year to make 20 grand? Heck, you ought to have, if you had 20 people that said that to you, what would your year look like? You made 20 calls a week, and then you made 20 grand at the end of the year. It's $400,000, by the way. But people don't look at it that way. Dialing for dollars, he just was willing to embrace rejection in the process. So you got to think about it that way. So Debbie, I think, asked this question earlier. How do you do it? How does Eric do it? Eric, by the way, I'll back up. He prospects for 2 hours every morning no matter what, period. 2 hours of phone calls every day and almost does no marketing, which I'm not sure I agree with, but that's his way. It's his journey. It suits his style. That's what he does. Moving on. There are 2 softwares that you do need to pay for, but they provide you cell numbers, everything you need if you want to circle, prospect, and do these things. He used to use Red X, which works, but he uses Vulcan 7. Google it, right? If you want to be able to get every cell number, everything about the people, the address, everything you need, it's all there if that's how you want to operate your business. But those are 2 products that will allow you to do that. So something for you to maybe look into today. If maybe this is one thing that you decide to incorporate in your business that's going to allow you to be a lot more effective, probably would be worth the money. If you buy it and then you don't make the calls, you're wasting your money, right? Okay. So when we talk about leverage the listing, this was another concept I thought was great. Utilize they call marketable moments. They are watching. So I'm going to go back to social media here. How many of you do video? How many of you do it on social media? How many of you have had business or appointments or been out with friends and you didn't realize they saw your stuff and then they start teasing you or they tell you they saw your stuff, right? Video is so powerful. You just don't realize it. And there's so many marketable moments when you're getting business. If you're willing to leverage it and take advantage of it, you could be doing. So one of the concepts I heard was when you're going to get a listing, hype it up. Go to your stories on Instagram and be like, here's a great house I'm getting ready to list. You can say where it maybe is, but you can't give the address. I understand there's MLS rules there. But give them a behind the scenes. We're getting ready to get it cleaned up. We got cleaners coming in. We're going to do some painting. We got stagers coming next week. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be Northwest Fort Wayne, Carroll Schools, whatever. It's on this lake. It's going to be a great property, etc. Knock on doors, private open houses. Let the neighbors know what's going on. Create excitement. Here's the rub. That seller knows there's going to be 1 to 3 listings in that area pop up. The people that are thinking about selling in the area are going to watch you. They are watching you. How you're performing, how you're handling that seller. You need to create an experience for them where they can visualize themselves working with you to do that for them. It's that simple. You don't realize it. You might prospect and cold call them, but put it out there. Go talk to them. Like, hey, did you guys hear what your neighbors did? We're getting it staged. It's hitting the market Monday. Here's what we're doing for them. And then keep them informed of the process. Let them see just listed, just pending, just sold cards. Let them see you run a killer open house and you met them again. Because guess what they're doing? They're interviewing you without even knowing it. They are watching, they're experiencing your service for their neighbor. And guess what they might do? By the way, how's that Andy been? Man, he's been all over it. I saw him on Instagram. He's been at the house. How'd that open house go? They're interviewing you. It's another opportunity to connect with people in the neighborhood. This is, obviously everybody knows this, pro tip, get a review. Ask for referrals. When we did Buffini coaching and training for years, I always said the rubber meets the road when it's time to ask for the referral and everybody chickens out. You do all the work, they love you, you're great, and then you're afraid to ask, right? If you do a great job, you're going to get some referrals, but the ask when you're working with people, and I'm going to go back to this whole cycle of generating business, closing, and then getting more business. Making the ask is really you creating a condition and coaching them to think that you want referrals. That, like Teresa, I'm looking at Teresa, that Teresa did a great job. I love her. She wants me to send her people. That's just a condition that you need to create in your database, and you got to ask to do that. So don't forget to do that. Reviews. 81% of sellers contacted only one agent to find the right agent to sell their home. This stat has gone up and up for years, and you would think it would get worse. There's more agents than ever. Half the battle is just to get the call or to get the appointment. If you get the appointment, you win 81% of the time. You don't even have to be good. You can be terrible, crappy, have a horrible presentation. But if you get the call, 81% of the time they're going to hire you anyway. They don't want to go through it. They're not going to interview other people. Like, if that doesn't do anything to frame your mindset of getting appointments, I don't know what else would. You don't even have to have a great listing presentation. 66% of recent sellers use an agent that was referred to them or that they've used in the past to sell a home. So again, the growth of your business is really inside your business. It's leveraging these relationships and getting more out of it and growing that database. So any questions about all these lead gen ideas and techniques? Lots of different things. Picking one or two that you can do effectively is what's going to matter, that you can do consistently. So I'm going to jump ahead real quick. Managing seller expectations. This has become a big issue. So you got the listing appointment. You got to manage the listing when it's on the market, and then you got post-listing, right? You need to start managing their expectations from day one. Wayne Frederick, a speaker and coach I work with, he always says, you either need to put them in your process or they're going to put you in their process. And that happens the day you set the appointment. And if you don't take control of what your process is, they're going to put you in theirs, and usually you lose if you do. So, audience poll here. Biggest challenge working with sellers. You guys mentioned a bunch of them. Pricing, it's not selling. What else did you guys say? Here, let me jump over here. The talk about market value, their expectations, keeping calm, days on the market. Getting sellers to understand the comps. Keeping them happy when days on the market go up. When sellers think they know everything and challenge me on every step of the way. That's a credibility problem. Okay. A lot of it's money and time. So let's chat about it briefly. I'm going to give you a couple tools that are really powerful. We've talked about them before. I think most of you have forgotten or don't know how to use them. This is what's happening right now. This is what's come out in my personal meetings, in the sales meetings, is that seller expectations are still in 21, 22. Buyers now have seen the news and rates gone up, and they got to get a deal on everything. Prices have got to be down, right? Rates are way up. Prices have got to be down, and the gap has widened. Expectations are further apart than ever. And so the market's going to require two things of you all right now. It's going to be the ability to have these crucial conversations and the willingness to have them. And willingness is a big deal. I've used this same graphic in another presentation. If you are unwilling to have it, what's going to happen on your listing? you're going to lose. You're hoping to get lucky, right? List it and pray. But if you're unwilling to have a tough conversation, or this conversation they need to have, you're going to be in a bad position. So, a couple quick things. Who's familiar with the DISC assessment? Many of you, right? If you want to communicate at a higher level with your clients, you need to probably be able to ascertain their personality style to be effective with them. Because if you talk to them in a manner in which it does not suit their style, there's going to be friction and you're going to not be very effective. So there's the DISC. I'm not going to get into it today. We could do a whole session on DISC. But we did provide a scan for all. We have some amazing DISC materials on all the different styles, what their motivators and drivers are, how to handle them. We got a QR code up here. All the materials are there for you. They'll be in the follow-up materials as well. Read through that material and think about how you deal with people. But a D, which is a driver, their bottom line, give it to me straight. I don't have a lot of time here. What do we need to do? Well, if you treat them like an S, which means that they want to get along and they don't want friction or conflict and they want to be a team player, they want to talk about the family and the kids, you're going to really piss the D off because you're going to wear them out and they're going to be like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I got other stuff to do. And then you can go through all the quadrants. But you can't be really effective with them if you don't understand this. So I want to mention it today. You want to be a real pro, know these quadrants and how to handle people and how to read them. So, QR code here. If anybody wants to get that, I'll leave it up for just a second. Those will all be there. Pull them up on your phone. Email them to yourself. Download it. Good stuff. The pre-listing packet. No, sorry. I'll go back. It's okay. Is everybody? You get it? No. Did it work for anybody? Okay. Really, really, really good stuff. You could do a whole session on this. It will make your relationships better anywhere. At home, friends, anything. It's amazing stuff. We good? Great. Okay, the pre-listing packet. You should all have a pre-listing packet. And from the time you get the appointment, it should be there within 24 hours and at the latest within 24 hours before you go. But a couple little tips to get more listings. Remember I talked about confidence? You need to instill in them that they believe you can do it. Client testimonials need to be a part of your pre-listing packet. Pro tip, have QR codes in your listing packet that provide them a link to an introduction video of yourself. Connections through video is next level. They look at you differently. If you are willing to do client testimonial videos, do that too. But if you're able to walk in the door and they've already seen a great intro video from you and they've either read a bunch of testimonials or seen a video or two of client testimonials, you're walking in the door at another level. And back to what Shannon asked earlier, you're totally setting yourself apart from everybody else. Because everybody else is winging it and they're half-assing it and they're going to walk in with their stuff and they maybe aren't prepared. They get this from you and they see those things. You put them in your process and you've set yourself up for them to have a lot of confidence in you, that you're a pro and you know what you're doing. So that's my pro tip there on pre-listing packets. The listing appointment. We can't get into this today. We could do a whole session on the appointment. But these are the factors. Timing, your marketing plan, communications. How are they going to be notified about showings? Is it going to be text? Is it going to be showing time? Am I going to call you after every one? Can we have check-ins every week? Who has listings and checks in with their sellers every week? A lot of you. Great. Do they go well? Usually? Yeah. They go well when you call them, right? I always say this. Average call to a seller is 2 minutes when you call them. It's 22 when they call you. Because you're defensive and you're being reactive and they're coming at you and you're backpedaling. They got you on your heels. So, and then price. Pro tip, price, never talk about price in the beginning. Because guess what happens after you talk about price? They hear another word. They don't hear another word you say after you talk about price. So, who sends a video text before their appointments? Just a couple. This is a game changer differentiator. It sounds crazy. Send a video text before you go. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hopefully you got my packet. If you have any questions in the meantime, let me know. But I'm prepping today. I'm looking forward to coming out and talking to you about how I can help get your home sold for you. You need your messaging to be positive. Take control of the appointment. Do not be late. And then you need to ask them the question when you're done. What's a good question when you finish with a listing? Do you have any questions? Are you ready to sign? Are you ready to get started? Are you ready to get the ball rolling? When are you available for pictures is great. How soon could we have the photographers out? Right? That's how you close. All right, I'm not going to get into these two. We've shared them before, but the 13 seller questions, these are from Wayne Frederick. If you want to manage expectations well, you need to know what they are first. And the only way you're going to know what they are is to ask the right questions. Great salespeople ask great questions and talk very little. Contrary to what the world thinks about us, they ask great questions. So these questions are right here. You're all going to have access to these two. But have you ever sold a home before? How'd it go? Was it a good experience or a bad experience? What's the most important issue for you to sell your home? You could pick 2 or 3 of these and uncover so much, but you got to be willing to ask. And I think when we talk about you putting them in your process versus them putting in you in theirs, is if they come to the table with a bunch of questions and you just sit down and you let them start asking you questions, you're in their process and you're going to lose control of the meeting and you're not going to be able to manage things at a high level. And so you need to take these questions. Some people put them together and send them to them and say, why don't you answer these, and then when I get there, we're going to talk about them. I wouldn't do that, but you could. I just might know that I got 2 or 3 of these or 4 that I'm always going to ask every time. So I encourage you to do that. By the way, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be with you today? Sounds crazy, right? Believe me, about price, sometimes they don't. So those are some of the great questions. I want to mention this about expectations. This probably going to go back a little bit to what maybe Jamie brought up earlier, and it's the pricing triangle. There is philosophically a way to manage pricing conversations with sellers at the next level, and it's this. I call it the pricing triangle. Everybody's familiar in psychology, there's always triangles, right? Triangles are problems, right? So, like, it's easy for Pam and I to talk bad about Dave, right? But it's not as easy to talk bad to Dave about Dave. But it's easy to talk to Pam, so Dave's like the third party. It's a triangle, right? Well, in interpersonal relations and all kinds of things, triangles are never good, right? And so when it comes to pricing, we're going to get into some details, not a lot. But you have to remember this, and I always looked at it this way when I was with them. You're at the kitchen table or whatever. You want to visualize yourself being on the same side of the table as them, and the market is the third point on the triangle. We're together. We're a team. Let's talk about the market. The market's a third party. Because what happens is if they get attached, or they attach you to the price, right? Guess who's on an island and they're not happy with you? You need to be partners in the pricing conversation in terms of, look, I don't set the price. The market sets the price. I do all I can to drive it in the market, but the market sets the price. And so you need to position everything early in the game to talk about the market. And so whether you do a beautiful printed out CMA or you put the comps on the table, they visually create third party. And you're together and say, let's look at what the market's doing here. That right there psychologically puts you in a much better position to be effective with them. You're just there to interpret the market. We're on the same team. I will say this, you can be the best marketer in the world, you can put it in the Wall Street Journal, you can spend $100,000 marketing a property and price will trump all. If it's overpriced, it won't matter. And that is another analogy that you need to share with your sellers, is like, this is the market, and just so you know, I'm very effective at what I do, and I'm effective at getting the maximum the market will bear, but price trumps everything. If you want to overprice this home, there are no more dummies out there anymore, right? That's what they think. Well, somebody really loves it, or they don't know about do you know the shag carpet? This has come back, or whatever. This addition is one of the coolest additions in the neighborhood. You know, you're going to get all that stuff. Yeah, or the heavy-duty nails, or the 120-year shingle that they put on the house, or whatever it is, feature benefit. You know, that's a listing presentation conversation. But price trumps all, and they just need to understand that. They need to understand it's the market. The best pricing tool you have is the CMA. We just did a huge CMA workshop in our company. It was great. We had an appraiser on, and then we created a whole guide on how to price and what the adjustments are. But I would say this in my own opinion, as far as managing expectations at a higher level. I think that the pricing strategy needs to be a discussion and a mutual decision. That's a big deal. If you walk in and tell them what their home's worth, I think you lose. If you get lucky and they accept it and it sells right away, fine. But more often than not, you need to have your seller take some ownership in the decision for the pricing strategy, or you're going to lose. And you need their permission to revisit it and permission to watch the market and assess the market. That's a really big deal. Any questions on that? That's the deal on the CMA. Anybody wants more CMA information, send us a DM or something, we can help you out or meet with you. But the CMA discussion needs to be about the third-party market, and it needs to be a mutual decision. Let me real quick back up. You know how you get there so it's mutual? Great questions. Well, I'll tell you what. Here's some comps. By the way, have you seen this one? This is just right around the corner. Are you familiar with this house? Ask them. Most of the time they are. Have you seen the pictures? Here's the pictures. Get their opinion on it. Get them to get engaged. But that is like next level stuff. That's not just walking in and giving them my market and hoping they take it. You need to have the conversation. Ask questions and stay neutral. I think this is one of the, this is another way to manage expectations. This is an area where I think agents back themselves in a corner and they don't know that they did until it's too late. They take great ownership in things. Well, we're not doing that. Or when we're pricing this here, right? You hear these things a lot and you don't realize it. It's a lot of pride. You really feel good about it. But the moment it doesn't work, guess who gets to own it? You. You don't think about that. When you're excited, it's up front. It's a way to maybe build yourself up in their eyes and you take all this ownership. But the truth is we need to come to an agreement together so you can revisit it later if you need to. Or if they get beat up on an inspection and price becomes a factor. It's something that you got there, you arrived at that together. So they need to take some ownership in the price or you're going to have trouble down the road most of the time. Okay, who is familiar with the absorption rate? We talk about this about every year or two. It's I think the best tool, the best arrow in your quiver you can have when you're on a listing. And most people forget about it or they forget how to do it. So I want to touch on it again. Absorption rates, how much supply is in the market? If you look for key phrases and things that people want to do on a listing, you can say, well, I'll tell you what, right now in your price range, there's about 3 months worth of homes for sale. At the rate homes are selling today, are you guys good waiting 3 months or 4? Usually they're not, are they? And say, well, for us to achieve market value, right now in your price range, there's about 3 months worth of homes on the market. So if you want to beat 3 months, we might need to be a little more competitive on pricing. Those are the conversations that you need to have. Well, guess what they don't want to do? They don't want to do that, right? They want their cake and eat it too all the time. But when you walk them through this exercise, every listing I ever went on, I always figured out the months of supply and absorption rate every single time, no matter what, because it was always relevant in the pricing conversation. And sometimes it worked to my advantage. Sometimes it really allowed me to get where I wanted to go, or it allowed them to get realistic about what was happening in the market. So, is there anybody use this on listings? I got about 4 or 5 hands. 6. This is the most underutilized technique in the business on listings, in my opinion. So, you take the number of sales divided by the number of months you want, the snapshot you want to take, that equals the absorption rate. Right? For homes in that range. Make sure you pick the segment of the market that you want. Do this before you go on any listing ever. Okay? So, here's how you do it. Here's an example. So, let's say that there were 9 sales in the last 3 months in the market that you're in. Divide that out, that's 3 sales a month. So, when you run a search, there's 6 for sale right now. So, what could you tell them? 6 for sale. They're selling at a rate, the market is absorbing them at a rate of 3 a month right now. That means we have about a 2-month supply of homes. Okay? I just told you earlier, at least in Allen County, the average days on market is 36. This would be 60 days. So they got the news, they had some other realtor tell them that the homes are selling in about a month, and you can say, well, I'll tell you what, in your market, in the Cliffs or wherever you are, it's about a 2-month supply of homes right now. So that is a classic way to manage their timing expectation. And then it's also a way to address price, because if they want to sell quicker than that, short of getting lucky, they might have to get more aggressive than where you're pricing it. Or they just need to be willing to say, honey, this is going to take a couple months to sell. If you sell it in 4 or 5 weeks, great. But you've got to be able to share this information with them to get them realistic. And I would also say this, in almost every price range, you're going to find different areas. There's hot price ranges with lots of inventory. I think a lot of times if you get in the upper end, you realize that there's a way more supply and it takes a lot longer to sell some of those homes. And so you need to manage those expectations big time, and this is the #1 way to do that. I always call this the bell curve chart. Had this in all my listing presentations. I want to mention this. How many times you get a seller that says, well, can we just try it for a while at our price and then we'll drop down later, right? You need to be able to show them visually that the majority of buyer activity happens initially up front. In this chart, the rule of thumb was 21 days. In the first 3 weeks, you're going to have the majority of your buyer market interest then. All the buyers that are out there are going to see it then. And then there's going to be new buyers come in the market over time, but it drops way down. And so you can always use the example of, well, we can start up here now, but then if we drop it in 3 weeks, you're going to be chasing the market down, and we're missing this wonderful pool of buyers that isn't going to respond to your house. And so this is a way to get them realistic about realizing they need to capitalize on those first critical few weeks of marketing. An old trainer, I think it was David Knox or somebody, said, well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's try my price first, and then we'll try your price later. I always thought that was kind of funny. You could say that on an appointment, kind of make a joke about it, but it illustrates the point that, everybody wants their cake and eat it too, right? But it illustrates the point that they've got to capitalize right away and get it right. And if they want to try high, then we might really pay the price for that later. Lawrence Young, the economist for NAR, just came out, and I was going to use this. It was the only stat he had that I liked. They are now coming out with new data with this slower market, that the average percentage of listings selling below list price, the longer they're on the market, they're now figuring out that sellers are having to come down more than ever than they have in 5 years, the longer they're on the market. And so you got to strike when the iron's hot, and this is a good example of that. Dave McDaniel, I'll give him credit for this, and I don't know that I know the details of this like I should, other than Showing Time has a tool in there, and I think almost everybody in here has access to it, to run the amount of traffic happening in price ranges. And I think even areas, right, Dave? Yeah. You can say, I live in Chestnut Hills. You can say, let's say you get a seller who's frustrated. You can do it up front and talk about it. Or let's say we're not getting any activity. You can run price range brackets and the number of showings in that neighborhood. This is powerful stuff. And again, you talk about the pricing triangle. Let's just talk about triangles. This is market data that is not you. You're just the messenger. By the way, I know you're really frustrated. We didn't have as many showings as I thought. But here's what's going on right now in the neighborhood as far as showing activity. You can have access to all the market data. This is super powerful stuff. There's other market data here. You can run all this, sizes you can get as defined as you want, but it's market data, not just you, but it's the whole market. Really powerful. And it demonstrates to them that you're in touch with the market, you know the market, and that it's not you. So, this is another little thing that's just work. When you miss buyers, do you find out why? Does anybody do this? I'm always amazed very few do it. I think the market was so busy for all you didn't have to. So you get a seller who starts to get frustrated, there's a little bit of pressure, and you have a showing and they end up not buying. How many of you take the time to call the agent, get the feedback, and say, hey, where did they end up going? What did they end up doing? Why did they buy that home? What was the deal with ours? You may get information that validates that you're fine. There's not a thing you could have done. You have a pool, or you have an upstairs master, and they just refuse to do that. He's got a bad knee or whatever. Or you may find out that they just thought it wasn't worth the money. But if you'll take the extra effort to do that and share the information with your clients, it's amazing how powerful it is. It's just as powerful to tell them you'll do it up front on the listing. So they have somebody who's really working for them. And then share it with them. You got to set the tone that you're willing to share market data with them. This is all kind of pretty fundamental stuff, other than You need to evaluate what their timeline is. You need to be willing to have weekly check-ins where you can be honest with them, and you need to get their permission to do that. I talked earlier about the funny question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be with you? You can make a joke about it, but you can say, look, the truth is, the market's really fluid. Things can change quickly. We're going to get a lot of feedback. I need to be able to have a relationship with you where I can check in every week, and we can always have candid conversations about how I can help better get your home sold. And that would be a way to do that. Satisfaction guarantee, they call this the reduce the risk. If you're worried about being in a competitive situation, put them in a position where they can't lose the list with you. If it doesn't go well, they can cancel anytime they want. Just take it off the table. I mentioned some of these. Another phrase I always liked, and it has to do with pricing, I'd rather be upfront with you today than let you down later. It's a great way to talk about price. And then the market is third party. I've talked about that plenty. So after the listing appointment, again, differentiator. I used to have a box of cookies or flowers show up and say, thanks so much for allowing me to spend some time with you. I hope that I have the opportunity to help sell your home for you. Cost $25 every time. They were cookie cottage. Showed up with a big bow. Just a little touch. I got listings because of that. They need to feel appreciated, and they need to feel that you really want the business. I hope you'll hire me is a different mindset. So you want to do that as well. And then also find out what they really care about in the sale. They all have different things that matter. It's not always money. I'm going to touch base on this too because this also has to do with expectations, but it's offers. You need to stay neutral. You never know what they'll do. You need to stay neutral. I think people, again, take too much ownership in all this sometimes. You need to be their Obi-Wan to Luke Skywalker, and you need to help them make the right decisions for them so they do the right thing at that time. You got to help them see the big picture. They get caught in the weeds quick. They get emotional. One of the best tools I ever had negotiating offers, carry costs. They say with inflation, this might be going up to 1.5, by the way. 1% a month to own a property on average. Taxes, utilities, insurance. You start getting in, we had one recently. They came back and asked for a $3,000 credit on an inspection. Perfect example. And they didn't like it. They were upset about it. And I'll say, well, let's just look at this. We can go back at them, but you're going to put them in a position to kill the deal if they want. They may not, but they'll have the right to terminate. What's it going to cost you if you just own it another month? It was more than $3,000. So you need to look at their hard costs. That's a great factor when you're looking at these things. And if it takes 2 or 3 months to get it sold or another month and a half, you're looking at 1.5 or 2% off of what they're getting to just deal with what they're dealing with. Does it mean it's a perfect match? No. But in this case, it was going to cost them $5,000 to own it another month. If you really factored it all in and they gave up 3, they're 2 ahead. So you need to frame it like that and keep it that way. I always thought this was great, and I wanted to mention this. This is another pro tip. Sellers start emotional and they get pragmatic. When they start, they're emotional. But once they've agreed to sell their house and they get an accepted offer, they are done. They want to get done and move and sold. But buyers do the exact opposite. When they start in the beginning, do buyers say, oh, that's not worth it. I didn't like that one. I didn't like that one. But then they get into a deal and they do inspections. They become highly emotional. And so you need to be mindful of that as you get further into the transactions. So set expectations, talk about costs, and keep them focused on the prize and what the big picture is. That's how you manage expectations once they get into it. Because they'll quickly, everybody in here, I'm sure, has had people kill a deal when the best thing they need to do is get the deal done, but they just get all jacked up and they get mad at the other side. The other way you avoid that happening is do not throw the other agent or the other clients under the bus. You're driving a wedge in the deal. So to finish here, and we've gone through a bunch of stuff, this whole cycle of a transaction and clients and listings is this cycle. So when you're done, you need to set this expectation of they're a client for life. Like, hey, anything you guys need, you're now, right? Anything you need, your friends, family, the roof goes bad, I'm going to check in with you. I am your person. And you need to just create this and set that up when you're done. However you do that, whether it's client parties, you're handling your sphere the right way, but you need to set the expectation in your dialogue, in your framing, in the conversations, is that you're there to take care of them for a long term. And that is what creates this cycle And that is why every seller has at least one seller referral. When you're done, that's what you do. You plug them in your system, and it's what you do. So in closing, before I open it up to any questions, the problem with the last 5 years from what I've seen is that it was really hot. Everybody was reactive. They were not proactively doing anything to drive their business. Some a little bit, but not a lot. People were winging it because the speed of the market was so crazy, they didn't have to get intentional. And so what I want to share with everybody today is I shared a ton of ideas. There's even more out there. Pick 2 or 3 things, create your system, and stop winging it. Just get proactive and intentional with your business. It can be simple. 2 things a week you do every week no matter what. When you get a listing, I do these 2 things every time no matter what. It doesn't have to be all this stuff, just a couple. But you have got to get more intentional about the business if you're going to survive and thrive moving forward. And if you get intentional about building listing inventory, everything else will take care of itself. Just like John said, if I get 50 listings, my life's great, right? So that's the deal. Any questions about anything we shared today? I know we went through a lot of information. Yeah, Dave. Oh, yeah.
You talked about engaging your database and engaging friends and family at the Christmas and Thanksgiving gatherings. Call reluctance and reluctance to engage. How do you overcome that as a new salesperson or as a salesperson?
Yeah, did everybody hear that? The question was really call reluctance or just reluctance to engage with people. At the holidays, Christmas parties, making the calls. Like a lot of people, and I hear this a lot, they have call reluctance. Technically in the sales world, it's called call reluctance. So I'll tell you what I think about it, but does anybody have anything you want to share about that? Any insight or anything? Phil, this will be good.
I don't know whether it'll be good, but I would suggest maybe for your long-term future, you seek another career. Because if you don't have...
that you don't like, right? So the truth is, great salespeople provide a great service and serve others at a high level. And I hate buying cars. Who loves buying cars? Nobody? Dave, yeah. That explains a lot. I'm kidding. I would say this, I hate it. I finally found a guy that I just love him. And he's a car salesman. He's awesome. He absolutely looks out for me. I've got 3 daughters. We've all got cars. I want them to have something good. It's expensive. He has called me whenever we're in the market for the next one. He's like, look, I'll call you whenever I get something. And we start the process. He's had stuff that he's like, it's pretty good, but you probably need to buy it around here. He gets into all the things I don't think about, the mileage, the warranty, the stuff, the discs, the brakes got redone, and it's got this much warranty left on it. If it was one of my own kids, this is what I would do. He told me not to buy several cars. He's been amazing. And he's serving a purpose. So I think that you need to think about what you're doing for people. And I think if you have a real problem calling people, if I can say this, I think you probably don't feel very good about what you're doing for your customers. And you need to sit down and really think about how you can serve people and what you do for them. And when you do, you feel better about contacting them. What's that? Bringing education to them, helping them. I've told this story for years. I had learned every dialogue and close technique in the world, and I was hard driving when I started, and I was 23, and I called everybody and close. And it was horrible. It was just terrible. I told a story once where the guy walked in the next morning and saw my dad, who was the broker owner, and said, I don't know who this punk kid was at my house last night, but he wouldn't leave till I signed the damn listing, and here it is, and I want it canceled right now. He just wanted me out of his house. It felt horrible. It was a horrible experience. And I just closed on this guy like I wasn't leaving without that listing. It was 68.5, a mobile home out by Clear Lake. And the truth is, I just sat back and was like, I'm banging my head against the wall here. I'm pretty good at what I do. I want to serve people at a high level, and I'm just going to start trying to find people that I can help. And when I did that, my willingness to call a lot of people and check in on them and care about people was a game changer. And I think for most people with that call reluctance, I think that that's what it is. You just need to say, I want to help people. This is what I do. And you got to remember, like everybody goes through life and they have windows that open when they're ready. Yeah. Then they're closed. Then they're open. Then they're closed. And your job is not to find them when they're open, which is what hunters do. It's just to create a condition with all these people. Like Phil said, it's a relationship business that when their window's open in their life, I'm calling Cindy. Like, oh my God, we got the promotion or we're getting transferred. Like, we got to call Cindy. That's what you want to be working towards. And I think that approach is a totally different approach towards calling a FSBO and all those other things. And to be honest, when you're calling FSBOs and expired, you want to get the business. But the truth is you just want them to become one of your peeps because that becomes the goose that lays the golden eggs forever. So, any other questions? All right. We have a couple great giveaways today. Jacqueline, you can help me out with this. So we got some door prizes. We always give away books. So much of what we talk about comes from all these books. By the way, the books today are all awesome. I've read every one, and they're dynamite. So here they are. All right. One small change. Many of you have had this over the years. We're going to give these away. Brian Miller. All right. Here we go. Oh, thank you, Barb. The new 1 Minute Manager, another great little book. Who do we got here? Teresa Bagowitz. All right, this is a book I'm reading right now. It's amazing. Exactly what to say for real estate agents. Good stuff. Okay, Rob Thomas. I think maybe he had to leave. Okay. Everyone heard of this, Atomic Habits? Famous book by James Clear. Awesome book. Tina Louise Stuckey. Here you go. Okay. Dave and Lori DeHaven. This book is called The Agent's Edge. This was written by Jordan Cohen. He's an active agent right now. He was the #1 agent in the world for RE/MAX. And he wrote everything, Secret Strategies to Win the Listing. So really good book. So that's for you guys. You got one more?
2 more.
Oh, 2 more. 10X. Bob's reading this book right now. We talk about it all the time. Great book. Cindy Garrett's. This is a great book about leveraging your time and spending time on what you're good at. Another one of my favorites, The Gap and the Gain. Same author. Kelly Adams. Kelly's here somewhere. Anyway, thank you. Okay, so enjoy those books. You're going to get a full recording of the event, but you're going to get all the materials, etc., the disc information, the 13 questions. If you want information on FSBO programs, expired programs, client contact programs, we've got it all. Let us know. We'll get it to you. And if you have any follow-up questions, obviously let me or my team know anytime. But appreciate you guys a lot taking the time to invest in yourself and your business. Have a great holiday season. Thank you.